Welcome. This is video number 4 in our series where you can learn how to build courage from chaos and live your best life. I'm Vanessa and I'm here with Tom Campbell.
Hi, Vanessa. Glad to be here.
Glad to have you.
Hello, folks out there in Facebook and YouTube.
That's right.
YouTube land.
So today we're looking at Tom Campbell's My Big Theory of Everything, and really wanting to understand, like, why should anybody believe Tom in this theory that he has? I've attended many of your events, Tom, over the last five years, and I've seen that you've welcomed challenge. When people are there, you welcome them to challenge you and question you. And I really appreciate that, because your philosophy has taught me a lot. I mean, it's given me this map to navigate my reality in this universe. So I've been able to understand my place in this universe. Ultimately, though, what it's helped me do is find myself and to recognize who I am, to find my self-worth, and to feel more confident about who I am. So once I got into this place and I have been able to connect with myself and my truth and kind of come home to who I really am, I started looking at your model more from this new perspective. And I came to this understanding that the model that you've created, it's your model and it's your story, and it's a really good story and it helped me a lot, but I'm still working on my own story.
Right, as you should.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
As you should. Well, that's why it's my Big T.O.E, because it's based on my experience. Like I said, I had about 35 years of experience as a conscious researcher and as a physicist. And I based this model on my experience. According to my experience, I had this set of facts in consciousness, this set of facts in physics, and I made a model that answered all the facts on both sides. But that's my experience. And your original question is, why should we believe this? And the answer to that is, you shouldn't. Please. Don't believe it. All you out there, got that? Don't believe it. Belief is the problem. Belief is a result of fear. When we believe things, we're no longer open to things that are outside that belief, to things that challenge that belief.
Right.
Everything that challenges our belief, we throw it away. The point isn't that you believe my model. If you believe it or if you disbelieve it, either one of those isn't going to help you grow any. The whole point is about growing the quality of your consciousness, lowering your entropy. And you can't do that from an intellectual perspective. No matter what book you read, no matter what movie you see, isn't going to help you grow any.
Yeah.
You have to do the growing.
Right.
So my Big T.O.E is just a model, a structure that may or may not be helpful in you creating your own Big T.O.E. But in the end, it has to be yours, because you have to change yourself. I have a couple of things I tend to always repeat. One of them is, if it's not your experience, it's not your truth. These books and this model reflects my experience. They can't reflect your truth. They reflect my truth. Now, if my experience somehow mirrors yours, or I talk about things that seem to relate to your own experience, then great, you can use my model. It may be a useful structure, but where there's a difference, then you need to stick to your own experience. Develop it from your own perspective. So following somebody else's model of existence is not valid, because existence is made in the mind of the perceiver. It's made in the mind of the player. The thing is that if you read a book or see a movie or something and you decide to believe that, well, you can believe it or you can disbelieve it, but now what? What does that do? How does that make you better? Or worse? Well, it doesn't really. It doesn't really. The only person that I can change is myself. I can't change you.
Right.
You have to change yourself. And everybody else has to change their self. I can maybe give you some tools that might help you develop insights about yourself and might help you flesh out your own model, but it needs to be based on your experience. And if it turns out to be exactly what's in my book, but it's your own experience, well, that's okay. You're not believing it now. You've lived it. It's yours. You own it, you see, and you've gained from the experience. But if you just read about it and never live it, it's all intellectual.
Right.
So you could talk about it, chit-chat about it just fine. You read the book, you memorize it, you can quote it, you can whatever, but that doesn't help you grow up any. You have to be it, not just read it.
Right.
So that is why I'm probably the only guy that at the end of a lecture, I stand and I talk to these people for 3 days, and at the very end of it I say, don't believe a word I say. You have to find out for yourself. It has to be your own experience. Another favorite phrase of mine is, you will get to the right answer if you always remain both open-minded and skeptical. Be skeptical of everything, everything, and be most skeptical of yourself, because we tend to tell us stories that we like to hear. We tend to make up things that justify our fears and justify our beliefs. So you need to be very skeptical. You need to be skeptical of everything that I say, skeptical of everything you think. And instead of feeling like you're obligated when you hear something new to either believe it or disbelieve it, just be open-minded and say, well, maybe. I give that a 10% of being true. But my experience can't validate it. Or I give that a 90% of being true, whatever. Based on your own experience, and realize that you don't have enough experience to validate it or invalidate it. It's just there. Most people feel obligated to guess. Well, I don't know, but I bet it's wrong. And now they believe that it's wrong, and they'll be resistant to anything else.
And then dismiss
dismiss all the evidence that proves them contrary to what they believe. So be skeptical of everything, mostly yourself, and be open-minded so that as new information comes in, you can integrate that. And if you don't have any beliefs, then you're open to all that information. Some of it you may say as well, that's a 0.9999, that's false. It just sounds false, doesn't ring true, I don't have any experience. But let it be a 0.999. Don't give it a 1 probability of being false or a 1 probability of being true.
Then you leave yourself open to understanding different ways.
Right. Because someday, who knows what information might come across. So if you don't believe anything, you're better off. Belief is the enemy. Belief is a thing that limits us. I call it belief blindness. As we have beliefs, we become blind to things that are contrary to our belief. So it's a good question, why should I believe this? You shouldn't. What makes you think you're right? I don't. This just simply represents the best model that I can come up with given my experience. So in my mind, that's neither right nor wrong. It's just my experience. So I won't say I'm right and anybody disagrees with me must be wrong. Based on my experience, this is how the world works. I find that lots and lots of people can find themselves in my model.
It's a very diverse community that has been drawn to your model because it's universal, right?
Yes, I get very diverse people when I go and give talks. I'll have scientists, I'll have engineers, I'll have computer scientists, I'll have homemakers, I'll have right brain new agers.
And everything in between.
I'll have psychologists, I'll have psychiatrists, I'll have guys that drive a cab, guys that dig ditches, guys that work in factories. It's a very broad group of people.
It is, What I liked about your model is that I've been searching my whole life for answers, right? And looked at philosophy, spirituality, religion. I liked your model because everything was pointing to the direction of love is the answer. And I get that, and I felt that. I'm like, yeah, love is the answer. But then when I look around, nobody seems to really love each other. So why the heck aren't we doing that? If love is the answer, then it doesn't seem to be apparent when I look at reality. And why should I love people when nobody else is doing it? So what really helped me is when I looked at your model, it provided the logical explanation as to why it is that love is the answer. That why piece came into place. And that satisfied my left brain and kind of put it to rest so that I could now exercise my right brain and let that lead and guide the way. Yeah, so I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, it has been a very successful model as far as people go. I've had hundreds and hundreds of emails telling me, it's changed my life. I get that a whole lot. People tend to be able to find themselves in it, their own experience in it. But if they don't, then they should give it a certain probability and stay open to new information that might come in. And if they never do, well, then there's no need to go there. It's not like you're obligated to go down this path. You go down whatever path seems good to you.
Yeah.
The one that seems most helpful to you, the one that works for you, the one that actually leaves you in a better space for the effort. So life is an experimental adventure. You go do and see what happens. You try and see what happens. And if it works, good for you, and you feel better and you feel more grown up and whatever, then do more of that. If it doesn't, if it hurts and feels bad, then do less of that. And just with that, you'll eventually, if you're open-minded and skeptical, you'll end up in the right place with the right model.
And the right guide.
Eventually, yes.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Tom. Yeah, this has been really helpful. Letting people, one of the pieces in your book I remember you saying too is, if it makes you feel any better, I don't believe any of this stuff either.
Exactly. These are metaphors. Don't get hung up on each one of these. Make it into a little person that runs around and goes to work in the morning, comes home and watches TV. It's not like that. These are metaphors that represent facts. Functional facts of both consciousness and of the physical world.
Yeah.
That's what they are. It's a model. Like I say, a model is good or bad based on how well it explains experience. If your model really explains experience very well for you, your experience, then it's a good model. If it doesn't explain your own experience to you, then it's not a good model for you.
And it's neat because these are the metaphors that you've used. And these metaphors, they overlap in other philosophies and spiritual teachings. For example, when you call it the larger consciousness system, a lot of people call that the oversoul or source, or some people refer to it as the universe or Godhead. And then when you talk about the IUOC, a lot of people refer to that as our soul or our spirit.
I like to stay away from words that
have connotations
to very specific ideologies, because I didn't want my work to fall into any one of those buckets. Right. I want people to think for themselves, think new thoughts. Don't be, if you use a word that has history to it, then people who have used that word in that context have a hard time seeing it in any other way, any other context. They're kind of locked in.
Right.
If you say God, then a whole bunch of people will see a supernatural being playing with these pet people.
Yeah.
That's not it. You have a larger consciousness system. It's a perfectly natural system. It's not supernatural. It's not perfect. And it doesn't order everything. A lot of stuff just happens because you have all these IUOCs with free will, changing things and doing things and interacting with each other. So it's different, but it serves in the same purpose. It's the source. We are all one with it because we're all pieces of consciousness. We're all a partitioned off piece of this larger thing with our free will.
Yeah.
So it, and we're all one. That comes out of Buddhism and
many different spiritual
Taoism
teachings.
and a whole lot of things.
Yeah, we are one.
Most of the mystical schools,
Even the Beatles.
Even the Beatles got that. Yeah, but it comes out of the Sufis and the let's see, what are the others? Well, there's lots of old ideas, like the Aborigines in Australia talk about this world as a dream. And when you die, you wake up from the dream. So that's the thing. Buddha talked about this being an illusion.
Yeah, Maya, the illusion. Yeah.
Kabbalah, that's the mystical school in Judaism.
Right. So
a lot of the things go with that. So if you look at kind of mysticism, you'll see a lot of this applies to that. It does not apply to religious dogma. It does not apply, it disowns all of the dogma. There's nothing you have to believe, there's nothing you have to say, don't send money, it's one of those things. So it's not asking for anything. It's just ideas. But you can see similar ideas in cultures all over the place. The difference here is that the same ideas that have been around thousands of years are now put into a logical framework using metaphors that are current rather than metaphors that were current 2,000 years ago.
Right.
And when we read it now, it's poetry. You read the Bible, you read the Bhagavad Gita, it's poetry.
Yeah.
If you don't know how to interpret it, it's meaningless. You have to interpret what's being said. If you just take things literally, well, Bhagavad Gita is just a couple of guys out on a chariot, talking about a war.
Right.
And what they say just doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense. But if you know how to interpret it, you can get an awful lot of quality from that source. Well, what my model is not poetry; it's logic. It's just logic. So it's an on-ramp for the left brain.
Right.
Those people who need logic, who can't deal with making statements without anything behind them, with no logic to support it. Those kinds will pick up a Bhagavad Gita, read about 10 pages, and throw the book away. Says, there aren't any facts in here. It's all just BS. There's nothing here. Show me the proof. You say they can't read that because they don't know enough of how to interpret it. But mine isn't like that. So the right brain people have had thousands of books that they can read that help them get to a bigger picture of reality. The left brain people have had nothing but materialism. And materialism doesn't give you a bigger picture.
No.
Materialism only gives you the little picture of reality, the little material picture.
Right.
And you miss all the stuff that's most meaningful. So this My Big Toe is an on-ramp for those left brain people that need logical process. So the whole book is logical.
It is very much so.
There's a couple of assumptions, and that is, as you said, that consciousness exists and evolution exists.
Yeah.
But those are pretty mild assumptions. Those aren't very crazy assumptions. They're pretty solid, based in our everyday experience kind of assumptions. But that's all you need. After that, the rest is logic.
Beautiful.
So that's the difference in it. Yes, Buddha said something similar. All the people who made, I guess, kind of the original religious schools, which are all mystical schools at those time, that turned into major religions. Many had the same kind of ideas and attitudes.
And it's because, and I've heard you say this too, is that there's one truth, but there's many different ways
to get to that truth.
Truth.
And there's many different metaphors you can use
to explain that truth.
To explain and express that truth.
Yeah. Well, I really like the metaphors that you use.
Well, mine are current day scientific and computer science metaphors that really lend themselves very well, because consciousness is an information system.
Yeah.
So all those information kind of terms really are, kind of at the root of what consciousness is. So it's a really rich set of metaphors if you're talking about consciousness. So that just works well. But we had to wait until, virtual reality became a thing, an idea, something that people
could relate
experience
to,
and could relate to,
could understand,
and could understand before any of this would be possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have Planck and Bohr and Einstein and all the rest of them scratching their heads and tearing their hair out. I know there's something big here, but what?
What is it?
What is it and how does it work?
Yeah.
They didn't have the concepts, but we do now.
We do now.
And even in almost all the physics departments all over the world, everywhere, this idea that we're living in an information-based reality is growing.
It's catching on.
It's catching on
Yeah.
because that's what explains the experiments better than anything else. Anything else doesn't really explain them. A lot of conjecture and hand-waving, but the fact is, the only thing that allows physicists to understand what they're doing is if they assume it's an information-based reality, which is the same as saying it's a computed reality, a simulation, a virtual reality. They all mean the same thing.
Right, right. Well, this was great, Tom. Thank you for taking the time to connect with me.
You're welcome.
And thank you for joining us. Make sure to connect with us next week as we dive deeper into Tom Campbell's My Big Theory of Everything. We'll be looking more specifically at sharing some tips to help you grow up and evolve your quality of consciousness.